look at some of the places that Margery Kempe would have visited over her travels. One thing to keep in mind is that the book itself was not written by Margery, but rather by a German priest that wrote down what was dictated to him. It would have been on a field similar to this one that Margery first received permission from her husband to live the rest of her life without any sexual relationship from him, repay her debt to him, and some other changes to their lives. She traveled to many places, but we will be traveling to some of the places that she has gone. It is here that we read of an instance of Margery's wailing and weeping as she thinks on Christ and also the first accusation of her being a lawlord. She tells the men in the cathedral of the story of a man that was scorned and corrected publicly once a year in the congregation of people. What is interesting about these people is that they were paid to scorn this man. She then goes on to tell them that at one instance the man was scorned upon freely by people that were high in society, as she was concerned that such a thing would not happen to her. She then thanks the men that they have scorned her and walks out. She leaves the cathedral and is met with people that accuse her of being a lawlord. You shall be burnt, you false lawlord. Take her and burn her. In Traveller to Norwich, she meets another woman that is fervent in her trust and love for God. Having told Julian of the wonderful revelations from God, Julian praises God for her. His revelations to Margery encourages to continue in her beliefs. A while later, we learn that she has arrived at the Holy Land, where she visits the different sites that Christ walked to his crucifixion and also the tomb where he was laid. As she comes to each place, she starts to cry, as she thinks of Christ and also of his suffering on the cross. Her weeping at the grave was so great that those that looked at her were amazed. We have heard before of Margery's crying, and some people believing that her crying was true, but others believed that this was her call for attention, or just a show that she put on wherever she went, that reminded her of Christ. One of the consequences of her wailing and weeping would be that she would eat alone, or she would be left alone to travel. However, at one instance we see something different occur. Arriving at Bristol in August of 1417, Margery was able to witness the feast of Corpus Christi. The procession, being a very solemn one, was probably even more memorable to the people that year because they were able to witness her crying. She was invited to the house of Thomas Markale, where she ate and shared her revelations of life. However, unlike the others that disliked her crying and her revelations, this man took in her teachings and he too broke down as he thought of Christ. As this place, she also corrects the bishops of their lavish lives and chastises them, saying, "No, truly you are more like the devil's men." The bishops at first are angry with her, but then, with her explanations, they become quiet. Why did they keep quiet with her explanations? Did they expect the truth of her teachings, or did they not want to listen to more of her teachings and wailings? After her long journey, we come across an instance where she is attacked with sickness for 8 long years. The fear of death comes upon her, as she falls ill with dysentery, but the Lord confirms that she will not die yet. She does eventually become better, but not for long, as she falls ill again with different ailments such as pains in her head or her back. The pain in her eyes is just a glimpse of the suffering that Christ went through for her. She says that she cannot stand to suffer bodily affliction, but it is probably just very little of what Christ went through for her. However, she does not want the suffering for her. She says, "I would rather suffer all the cutting words that people might say about me, and all the clerics to preach against me for your love, than this pain I have." Also, because she was able to taste a bit more of Christ's suffering, she cries even more. Because of her crying, she is forced to receive communion at different times from the others. Another consequence of her crying was that she was removed from the church for a time. As she arrives at the church of St. Stephen, she falls down wailing and weeping because of the love for Christ that she felt burning so fervently. She makes it into the church to only fall down again at the altar and weeps that the people around her question her crime. "What is wrong with you, women? Why are you behaving like this? We knew him as well as you." The people believed that she cried because of some worldly affection. The others that knew of her behavior took care of her to the tavern where she was given a drink. There are many fascinating occurrences that take place in during the travels of Margery. One such instance would be the fire at Trinity Guildhall in Norfolk. The fire would have also destroyed the church if it had spread. Here, Margery's crying is accepted by the people and is even encouraged because they believe that there are many a possibility the miracle to prevent the burning of a parish. Under Margery's advice, the Blessed Sacrament is carried toward the church. Prayers are said, and there is a great snowfall so that the fire is quenched. The people accepted Margery's crying while the parish was in danger of being burned, but as soon as the threat was over and she began crying again, she was scorned upon. She moves on to another place. Her husband of 60 years has fallen and has become bedridden, which leads to Margery having to take care of him. The people began to blame her because of what happened to her husband. Her work to the Lord continued at home in the form that she would take care of her husband, who had become like a little child because of his injury. For a while, we don't see Margery travel extensively, like she used to, but rather she meditates on the Passion of Christ. This is the last time that we read of Margery being tested because of her crying. Two priests ask her to come with them to a church that was dedicated in honor of God and Saint Michael. Here she proves once again that her crying is indeed genuine, and she explains to the people about her meditation. A while later, we learn that she has visited the Abbey of Denny after many attempts. She is discouraged, but Christ comforts her. The final place that we see her in the first book, is the church. She is not wailing and weeping like all the other times, but rather she is thinking of all the experiences that she has gone through. She is worried that the way she had conducted herself in some things had not pleased God, but He, the Virgin Mary, other saints, come to comfort her.